Hello and welcome to the first ever episode of Antimatter Skunkworks. Why Antimatter Skunkworks? Why not? I am primarily a car guy, but I also have a lot of other interests, so I created this channel for pretty much everything else. Which means it's like a box of chocolates, you never know what you're gonna get. But I do promise a healthy side dish of building stuff, and that's what's on the menu for today. There's probably some kind of rule against saying that this is gonna be an adventure, but yeah, this is totally going to be an adventure. And where do most adventures start? Like always, at my mailbox. Or more precisely, my mailbox post, the second most useful part of a mailbox. I know what you're thinking right now. You're thinking, what can this guy possibly do to a mailbox to make it any more exciting than it already is? Well, let me show you. Excuse the sunglasses, we're in the middle of winter here in Florida, and I actually had to put on some long shorts. Anyway, this is my mailbox. It's been hit twice over the last few years, once on purpose, once on accident. The first time this happened, I picked up pieces from over there, and I think a little bit of over there. I put them all back together again with some screws. They made a flimsy version of what it used to be. Now that it's happened the second time, I've decided to go with something just a little bit more sturdy. That is 3.5-inch square steel tubing. You may be wondering, is it really worth the effort, the time, and the money to make a pole like this? Well, if you just want something sturdy, the answer is absolutely not. The steel alone for this was $150. I think the rest came for free. A brand new wooden pole, similar to the one that I had, is $40 at Home Depot. And to take what I have right now and drive a couple hundred more screws through it requires nothing more than, tools and some harsh language. So that'd be the normal way I'd go. So why then am I doing this? Well, in a word, features. This is what most of the mailbox poles look like in my neighborhood. As you can see, the landscapers like to go to town on them. To combat this, I've added an aluminum plate here on my post, and as you can see, the landscapers have already attacked it both above and below. Between kids, hurricanes, landscapers, wood rot, and lousy drivers, until I became a homeowner, I had no idea how many things had it in for my innocent little mailbox post. So what other features am I talking about? Well, I wanted to put some lighting on the mailbox post for Christmas or whatever kind of decorations, and it being hollow makes it easy to run the cables and stuff through there. Also, I was coming into the neighborhood one time and I saw a house that was decorated with these sort of big illuminated gift box things I thought looked pretty cool, and I thought I would put them in the front yard, maybe around the mailbox post. And then I thought, well, somebody's gonna, run off with them or something, and maybe I could put a bicycle chain through there or bolt it directly to the pole. And I know what you're probably thinking, like, well, is that really a thing? Do people actually steal decorations? And if they do, why would they steal yours and not the neighbors, and so on and so forth? And does this really happen? And the answer is, yep, already had it happen right off the front porch. So a probably bigger concern than just a few decorations, though, is I've been thinking about doing some projection mapping. If you don't know what projection mapping is, go on YouTube and look it up. It's uber cool. But that requires me to put my desirable projector out on the road where a would-be thief could come by and take it in a matter of seconds. If I weld up a strong box or something, I could bolt it right to the pole, and they can still get it, but at least they have to have tools with them, right? And maybe it'd be safe for 4 or 5 hours a night instead of me having to sit out there with a shotgun. Also, it being metal, it lends itself to nice little temporary decorations in a quick fashion. I envision my wife coming home on her birthday, and I print out something on the printer and use a couple of magnets to stick happy birthday on there, and that's the kind of lazy points a husband like me can use. So, with all that put together, I've decided to go ahead and do it this way. And I'm going to show you how I did it. Alright, now that I've explained everything, let's light this candle. Step 1, you're probably thinking, is buy a horse, get a rope, lasso that thing, and pull it out of the ground. Well, I don't have enough money for a horse. I spent it all on mailbox posts. Also, step 1 turns out to be weirder than I would have thought. You see, I didn't know what I was doing. Still don't know what I'm doing, but I watched about a dozen videos on YouTube on how to do this, and that's a disturbing number of videos to have on such a simple topic. Strangely, not knowing what I was doing, I could still tell most of them were doing it wrong. Out of those 12 videos, not one of them mentioned calling 811. I saw this public service announcement disturbingly close to when my mailbox was run over, and it said, hey, if you're going to dig a hole, make sure that you call 811 first. 811 is a service apparently that sends people out to the house, utilities, gas, electric, you name it, and they'll mark the ground to make sure you're not going to dig into the neighbor's internet or something. So I thought I'd give it a try and give it a call. That's why it's step 1. It takes a couple days for them to come out and actually mark that up. So, out of those 12 videos, only Lowe's and this old house even bother to mention that. Generally, I think it would be pretty safe. I mean, the pole's already there. Somebody had to dig the hole in the first place, but like I said, it's actually a law. And I know it's going to take me more than a few days, so I didn't see any problem with go ahead and giving them a call. Step 2 is measure what I got. The U.S. Postal Service says that the bottom of the mailbox should be 41 to 45 inches off of the ground, basically off of street level. And the front ought to be 6 to 8 inches from set back from the curb. And the problem is they only have one scenario, and I'll show you the graphic here on the video. And that graphic shows a curb. Well, as you can see, I don't have a curb, I have a gutter. So where's the curb? If you look beyond that garbage can, there is an actual curb where the culvert comes in. If you look at where they built that, it's actually partway up the gutter, so I've decided to call that the curb. And when I do that, my mailbox is about 5 inches set back, so it would be in spec, except of course there's a big 1-inch gap there at the bottom. It's not rocket science, I think I'm close enough. But 47 is a little bit too tall, so when I make the new pole, I'll just go ahead and sink it a little bit deeper, but I'll basically make it to the same dimensions, which is why I did these measurements to begin with. So I went ahead and marked a line here on the sidewalk with a distance to the center of the hole so that I would know exactly where to put the new mailbox post. This will probably wash away in the rain, so I'll probably make a little drawing or something. Alright, that's step 2. Step 3 is grind all the rust off of those poles. This is a step that shouldn't exist. I'm not looking forward to it. And I'm not going to make you watch. I'll just let you know how long it takes. Alright, so it's been 2 days, and I've been grinding during those 2 days. Not all day, but one 6-foot section of this took me 2 hours. 2 hours. And look how it came out. I don't know if the camera will pick that up very well. I will try and move it around so you can see that there's still a lot of little pits and rust inside the pits, and never again will I buy steel that rusty. I didn't realize it when I talked to the guy on the phone until they were basically loading it into my car. You know, I was in the office and they were cutting it and they loaded it into my car. When I got there, I figured, oh, I can grind it off, no big deal. Well, it was. I went through many different grinding discs and pads and all kinds of stuff, and that's about the best I can get it. So, and of course the inside, I mean, it's well on its way to falling apart already. So I'm going to spray it with some of that stuff that converts rust, and hopefully that'll do the trick. Alright, so I promised you features, and the first feature is I'm going to put an access hole in that piece of metal to install this little extension cord thingy here. That way if I want to power out to the mailbox, I can just go up through and put this right on there and plug in whatever I want to plug in. Alright, so you can see, I got my little access hole now. Just look at all that rust. What a pain. Anyway, I did it all with my Dremel tool. So, I like to provide information in my videos that you don't find in other videos. That 811 number that I dialed, the lady asked me a couple questions. They were pretty benign, usually just stuff like, where do I live, and where's the hole, how deep's the hole going to be, what's the average flight speed of a swallow, you know, the normal stuff. And I gave her all that. She did ask if I had a permit or if I needed a permit, and she also said it was okay to say, I don't know. Then, apparently, they report this to all the various agencies that have an interest in the area, gas lines, sewer lines, water, things like that. And I was afraid at first that they were just going to give me a list of numbers that I had to call individually, but in fact, they did not. They took care of all of that. It was really convenient, and it's hard to say that about a government, you know, any kind of a government institution, but they really did a pretty good job. This is day 3, so they should have all answered by now, and when I went online to check, I put in my little reference number, 4 out of the 6 had responded that there wasn't a problem. The other 2 hadn't responded, and I think legally they kind of have to, and it said something about them contacting them again to try and get answers, so we'll see what happens over the next day or so. I'm still not quite ready yet. I'm just starting. I haven't showed you any build stuff yet, but I will show a little bit of that because I know it's kind of why you're watching, I guess. Funny thing is, they came in, one utility, I guess, came and marked like the complete opposite side of the driveway, like, here's the stuff, don't go near it. And I mean, it's a mailbox, so I don't know why they would have thought I'd be way over there, you know, but I guess they come out and just mark whatever they want to mark. So anyway, don't be afraid to call 811. You got to do it a little bit in advance, but yeah, it works pretty well. Well, not everything has to be steel. I mean, it probably should be, but it doesn't have to be, and I have some scrap material left over, and I like to try and use up scrap when I can, so I'm going to make this part that holds the extension cord out of wood. So I just tack welded some 3/8" bolts inside this, inside the piece of metal, and I cut out a little piece of wood that goes in there, and then can strap this to that with some zip ties or something, I guess. And you know, it doesn't matter if I want to change it out. If I change this guy, then I can always just make a new piece of wood or whatever, as long as it mates up with these bolts. Why 3/8"? Because that's what I had laying around. It makes you wonder how many decisions have been driven by that, huh? I could see them interviewing some NASA guy going like, well, the spacecraft's made out of 80 thousandths aluminum alloy because, well, that's what we had laying around. Alright, on to the next part. Alright, so here's where I stand. I thought I was so brilliant. I made this little tool on the top. I welded 4 bolts into a sliver of the pipe, and then I ran bolts through that and added the nut to locate those nuts in the main pipe. Now, I know that when 2 nuts are threaded onto a bolt that they can often lock, so I made sure that I could turn them before I welded right in here, this bottom bolt. And then the idea was bottom nuts. So then the idea was to take the bolts out, take off my template, and I would be left with 4 nuts welded to the end of this post. And that would give me something to screw into. Well, you know, I thought, so one of them came out, 3 got tight. I assumed that it was because of the heat, so I put this in the freezer. It's still very cold, in fact. But no, I snapped 3 of them off, so now I've got to try and figure out how to get those out. You know, they say you learn more by failure than you do by success, and I've already figured out a couple of things. I think this idea still works this was a loosest one of the 4, I believe, and so I think you have to keep the bolt loose when you do it. Also, I think I only need to get a thread or two into this bottom nut before welding it. I went all the way just flush to the bottom nut, and I think I didn't need to, because all of these turned a bit before they finally seized up and then finally snapped. And I just went ahead and snapped them because I didn't have any choice. I mean, I bolted my tool to my work, so they either had to come out or break. Now I'm gonna have to drill them out. It's gonna be a pain. Don't do what I did. Alright, so step one is to drill right in the center of these things. Okay, step two is to screw up step one pretty badly. So you can see here, I'm way off center on this one, and I've started drilling out the nut, and I'm off center on this one as well. This one I actually hit pretty well, and I was able to get a tap down into it till I think I hit the second nut. This one, of course, was okay from the start. So what I did was I drilled deep enough to get through the first nut, basically my tool. So I'm hoping now I could at least bang the tool off of the work piece, and then, sorry, I wouldn't have the camera right on, and then try and maybe either tap out these or maybe cut them off if I can get down in there and put new ones in and start again. Alright, to my surprise, that actually worked. I was able to get the tool off. You can see right there where there's a bit of the bolt still stuck in there. Same thing over here. And I was left with these here, these 4 nuts. And honestly, I'm going to try and tap these 3 and maybe even the 4th one and see if I can maybe just rescue this interface. Then I'll just have to fix the tool for the next go-around. Okay, I can't believe it, but that worked. Not only did I rescue the workpiece, but I rescued the tool as well, and I even added a couple of extra tabs so it sits straighter on there. And so yeah, now I'm free to make the same mistake again. Okay, so this piece is now done. I've got this little access door with 2 screws that hold it on. They go on the bottom, and then I can mount whatever I want to on this end by using this pattern. And I got my little tool over there to make that pattern with. It gets welded onto the main post on this side. So what I'm going to do is clean it up and then spray it with some of that rust converter stuff and move on to the next piece. Alright, round 2 with my tool. Hope I'm not going to make the same mistake again, but what I've done is these are pretty loose because I've had to tap them out a couple dozen times, and then I've only put it in like 1 or 2 threads on this bolt just to hold it while I tack weld that in, and I'll pull it out right away, and I'll only do 1, that way I'm certain it's kind of working, and well, let's see how this goes. Alright, well that worked really well. You can see I've only put 1 tack, oh there's 2 there, I've only put 1 tack on each one except for that one, and I'm going to go ahead and tack the others. I was afraid that by being loose it would sink these things below the being flush with the surface, but you know, I just don't think that's, I don't think I care really. And it did a little bit on this one, but I think that worked really well. And there's the last one done. This is probably the most important one because it's going to go on the top of the pole, and I already have something I want on the top. I knew it was going to take me 2 or 3 days to do this, so I left my old mailbox up so I could still get mail. Smart, huh? Okay, so here's the completed mailbox post. Then the finished welding. I've tested my welds many times, so I'm pretty sure that they are sound, but they're still not real pretty. This one isn't too bad, so I'm not going to grind it down. This one was pretty ugly, so I just put some weld over the top. That also looks like crap, but I was just filling in the hole, so I'll grind it down and make it a little bit smoother. So the only thing left to do is to mount something here on the top for the actual mailbox, which is over here. You can see how it's installed now. It's got a narrower one for this post, and then the screws go through and it kind of puckers in. So I think most mailboxes, there's a piece of wood in here. So I think I'm going to make a piece of metal roughly this size, tack weld it on, and then I can drill holes through that and put a piece of wood on there and then install whatever mailbox I want on the wood. And if the wood rots, I'll just take it off, put another piece on, and good to go. Okay, so here's what it looks like now. I'm going to do one of those magic tricks. Ready? Here we go. Voila. So I wanted kind of a gasket, but I didn't want to essentially glue the piece in place, the cover in place. So I actually laid down some RTV and just let it dry, and I wasn't sure that was a thing, but it actually works pretty well. Okay, now for the hard part. I gotta dig the hole. Alright, so this is interesting. I've dug about 18 inches down and I'm not hitting any concrete at all. I know Home Depot sells one of those like spikes that you can put in the ground, but I thought everything else had concrete. Guess I was wrong. Alright, so my wife got me this funky stand. It's called a jaw stand for Christmas, so I thought I'd put it to use. I've got mixed feelings on the usefulness of that, but it's almost perfect for this, except if you come down here, I'd like to pour concrete about this high, which means the forms are going to hit this back leg back here. So I may have to come up with another way. I could even use these bolts up here to bolt something to, you know, some kind of a tripod thingy to it. But right now, I hate to move it because look at that. 89.95. I'm going to call that 90. Okay, time to crack this thing open and see how bad I did. I don't have a lot of confidence here. It was really crumbly. Yeah. That's what I was afraid of. You can see there's voids in it all over the place. It's the nature of the cement that I chose. Had a lot of gravel in it. Now I'm going to need to see what I can do about making it look better. I could just put some blocks here, or maybe I can find some concrete that I can fill in. I don't know. I'll go to the hardware store and see what they say. If you have any suggestions, it'll be too late because I'll be done. But it's very sturdy. And I think it's time for some paint. Alright, things are pretty quickly coming to a conclusion now. You can see at the bottom of the post I've used some concrete patch to make it look a little better. I am no artist, however. I'm hoping I can come in with a grinder and a masonry disc and kind of clean that up a little bit more even. And I've installed the stainless steel hardware down here. I'll just paint over that and it's just going to stay that way, so there'll be some bumps on the side of the thing. But for future, I can mount anything I want there. The aforementioned Christmas presents or projector or whatever. I do not like how this ugly mailbox is sitting. So I'm going to paint it probably, and you can see it was made to go on the actual post, and I made this flat and wood, and I thought that these skirts would come down more and cover it up, but as you can see it didn't, and I think most people driving are lower, and so they're going to see this ugliness, so I'm going to put it back the way it was. So here's the finished product, more or less. I have to push the dirt back in around the bottom. The little thing on the top is a light, and it changes colors at night. It's just about perfect for the application. It's not too bright to blind anybody, but it's bright enough to be seen. I don't like the mailbox. I will probably paint that later. But I think this concludes the episode. I hope you enjoyed. Well, that's it. I don't have a fancy catchphrase to end my videos. If you have one, send it to me. I'll consider it. Instead, I'm going to just leave you with this. You may have seen it before, but I still think it's really cool, and it's probably as close as we'll ever get to a machine that resembles something you might see on Star Wars.